The New York Times is one of the most popular publications in the world and the paper of record for the United States. It's also run cover for Israel's genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. It's done this with things like laundering atrocity propaganda, passively framing Israel's war crimes, deliberately avoiding the use of crucial descriptive words like genocide, and more. Today, we're going to get a small taste of that by reading through one of their beautiful pieces of journalism, an article published on March 15th titled, "Israel Keeps Up Attacks in Gaza Despite Truce." Now already you may notice a bit of a problem with the headline. There's a truce, they say, but Israel is also conducting attacks in Gaza. So is there a truce or is there not one? If there is a truce, the correct word to use in regards to Israel's conduct is violates. Israel violates the truce by attacking Gaza. An attack on Gaza is a violation of the ceasefire. Any of those would do, anything other than what is written here. Israeli forces killed at least 9 Palestinians in Gaza in strikes on Saturday, according to the Gaza Health Ministry, the latest in a string of Israeli attacks on the enclave that have kept up despite a roughly 2-month-old truce with Hamas. Okay, wait, so not only did Israel violate the ceasefire, but in doing so, they killed 9 people. Why is this mass killing event being downgraded to simply an attack in the headline? A non-ceasefire violating attack at that? Since the ceasefire went into effect in mid-January, the military has conducted constant strikes in Gaza. Israel has accused militants of threatening its forces by laying explosive devices, flying drones, or by approaching where Israeli troops are deployed. Hamas has claimed those attacks have killed more than 150 people since the truce took effect, at least some of them civilians. And it has accused Israel of repeatedly violating the agreement by continuing military operations. So this is a good example of kind of one of the central issues in this coverage, which is that the claims from both Hamas and Israel are being given the same weight in this debate going on in the article, but only one of the figures cited here can actually be confirmed. When Hamas claims that 150 people have been killed, this is a statement of fact. Israel has killed over 150 Palestinians, the vast majority of whom are civilians, including a number of children. We have the names, the video and photographic evidence of their killings, and the medical records. When Israel says that its troops were threatened, Israel provides no evidence for this claim, and yet the New York Times reports it as if it's on par with the claims made by Hamas, claims which have evidentiary backing. On Saturday, the Israeli military said it struck 2 militants who were operating a drone that posed a threat, and then struck a vehicle carrying others who had arrived to collect the drone operating equipment. It did not elaborate on how they posed a threat to Israeli troops. Oh, okay. Well, this would be good to lead with, I think, the fact that Israel gave no evidence or even explanation as to why they killed 9 Palestinians with an airstrike during a ceasefire. Ismail Thawabte, the Director General of the Hamas-controlled government media office in Gaza, said the 9 Palestinians killed in the strike were working for a charity. The identities and statuses of those killed could not be independently verified. So when Palestinians report evidence, the New York Times makes sure to designate their status as a Hamas-controlled, Hamas being a U.S.-designated terrorist organization, mind you. Terrorists are controlling this government media office, that's the implication whenever they use this label, and that nothing can be verified independently. The IDF is, of course, absent from the U.S. list of terrorist organizations, despite its many terrorist actions. That's because the U.S. makes the list, and the U.S. and Israel are the good guys, according to the U.S. and Israel. So that takes care of that double standard there, but the independent verification on their claims goes unmentioned. Interesting. The Israeli military said earlier on Saturday that it had struck 3 militants in central Gaza who were attempting to install explosive devices on the ground near Israeli soldiers. Officials in the Gaza Health Ministry did not respond to requests for comment. The steady drumbeat of Israeli strikes is a reminder that while Israel and Hamas have reached an agreement that paused most of the fighting in Gaza, a comprehensive truce is still nowhere in sight. In Lebanon, Israel is conducting a similar aerial campaign against the Lebanese armed group Hezbollah, a Hamas ally, during the U.S.-brokered ceasefire there, saying Israeli forces are attacking sites and operatives that have breached the agreement. So the exception to the rule of, quote, most of the fighting being paused in Gaza is the steady drumbeat of Israeli strikes. Why is the steady drumbeat of Israeli strikes not the focus of this article? What a poetic way to describe something that must certainly be in violation of a ceasefire, right? Steady drumbeat. The war in Gaza began after Hamas's deadly the October 7th attack on southern Israel, which killed about 1,200 people, mostly civilians, according to Israel's government. About 250 others were taken back to Gaza as hostages. The New York Times, as most Western outlets do, choose to start the clock on this war on October 7th of 2023. Did anything happen before that could have led to the conditions that may have led to such an attack? Or any other options explored, perhaps even nonviolent ones by the people who undertook it to alleviate said conditions? What happened in the preceding 70 years? Was there a brutal occupation and a repeated campaigns of ethnic cleansing, a medieval siege controlling everything that goes in and out of the Gaza Strip, repeated high-tech massacres of innocent civilians in Gaza, massacres Israel itself refers to as mowing the lawn? Is any of that relevant? Who knows? Definitely not the New York Times. Israel's subsequent military campaign against Hamas has killed more than 48,000 people, including thousands of children, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. The figures do not distinguish between civilians and combatants, and the Israeli military claims to have quote, eliminated nearly 20,000 Hamas operatives. So this is just straight up IDF propaganda right here. Weighing these claims against one another as even remotely comparable is IDF propaganda. There's no other way of putting it. The Israeli attacks in Gaza are characterized by an extremely high civilian casualty ratio in comparison with other armed conflicts in the last decades. As of January 2025, 15 months into the attacks, over 46,000 persons have been killed by Israeli forces in Gaza. Some 24,000 out of the 40,000 who have been identified are women, children, and older persons, making almost 59% of the identified fatalities. While the estimated number of combatants killed by the ISF varies, there is no doubt that civilians comprise the vast majority of the persons killed since the Israeli attacks began. According to a United States intelligence assessment from May 2024, Palestinian armed groups have lost 30 to 35% of their fighters in Gaza since October 2023. The commission therefore estimates the death toll of Hamas and other armed groups as between 6,000 and 14,000, given an estimated strength of about 20 to 40,000 militants prior to October 2023. One report estimated that 8,500 militants were killed. The ISF claimed in October 2024 that it had killed about 17,000 Hamas operatives and members of other armed groups. Given that the number of adult male fatalities since October 7th has been around 16,000, this would mean that the ISF considers all adult male Palestinians in Gaza to be members of armed groups and so legitimate targets. So even if the total number of male deaths were 16,000, 4,000 less than what the New York Times is so graciously quoting the IDF as saying, that still means that there are no innocent men in Gaza. The IDF has repeatedly, egregiously lied about the ratios of combatants to civilians killed. The evidence we do have, far from being the most moral army in the world, it's like the least moral army in the world by a long shot, the army that committed and is currently committing genocide. That's another thing that goes completely unmentioned in this article is the whole genocide thing. Who cares about that though? That's just a bunch of independent human rights organizations. The only credible sources on the matter are the IDF, I guess. There's certainly no conflict of interest there in citing them. Israeli leaders say they will not end the war against Hamas until they topple the group's rule in Gaza and the territory no longer poses a threat to Israel. Hamas has shown some willingness to give up civilian governance in Gaza, but has drawn a red line on disbanding its battalions of armed fighters. How rude of them to refuse to disband their military capabilities. It's not like that's some recognized right under international law for an occupied group of people. Dicks. Israel and Hamas are supposed to be negotiating the next steps in the ceasefire agreement, which would involve a permanent end to the war, the release of the remaining living hostages, and a full withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. Mediators, including the United States, Qatar, and Egypt, have made little headway so far, given the entrenched disagreements between the two sides. Yeah, entrenched disagreements. Both sides have those for sure. Could there be any valid reasons for disagreement among one of the two parties? Perhaps the violations of the ceasefire that you just spent an entire article describing. Could that have anything to do with these alleged disagreements from both sides? I legitimately cannot read the New York Times without getting really angry and writing a script about it. Israeli forces remain deployed in a buffer zone inside Gaza and along the Philadelphia corridor, which runs along Gaza's border with Egypt. Under the terms of the ceasefire, Israel was supposed to have withdrawn from the Philadelphia corridor by mid-March. Oh, that's good. Thanks for the heads up. So they also are violating the ceasefire in another way, on top of the steady drumbeat of attacks. Thanks for letting us know, I guess, at the very last sentence of the article. Really cool. So what do we notice from this article here. Overall, it's just a masterclass in manufacturing consent. The New York Times passively reports clear evidence of Israel's ceasefire violations while weighing them against Israel's unverifiable defenses with long histories of fabrication and falsehood. The New York Times offers a disgustingly passive and vague recounting of the numbers, names, and circumstances surrounding the Palestinian deaths. The death toll of over 150 Palestinians includes many children, such as Ahmad Abed, a 7-year-old Palestinian boy that was killed just days ago. Crucially, though, the article makes no mention of Israel's complete blockage on humanitarian aid from entering Gaza. On March 15th, the day that this article was published, Israel had completely blocked any entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza for over 2 weeks. 2 straight weeks of no food, no water, no supplies, no housing, a recent total halt on any electricity, all of these restrictions calculated to bring about the suffering and destruction of this group of people, and all of them in direct violation of the ceasefire agreement, international law, and the ICJ's provisional measures issued against Israel to prevent the crime of genocide from taking place. To the New York Times, none of this is important. The fact that 6 babies have frozen to death due to the harsh conditions, lack of fuel, and lack of housing, all a direct result of Israel's aid blockage, completely man-made deaths, all of that is unimportant to the New York Times. To end this video today, I want to turn briefly to the newspaper Haaretz. Haaretz is the Israeli paper of record, and Haaretz is weird because a lot of their coverage is as bad or worse than the New York Times in terms of caping for Israel's genocide, but of late their coverage has been quite direct and honest, much more than anything you'll see in the West. That isn't saying much, but let's just read to get an idea. Article headline: 9 killed in Israeli airstrikes in Gaza, including journalists, Palestinian medics say. Right away, wow, okay, look at this. 9 killed in not just attacks, but Israeli airstrikes. They're naming the perpetrator. The victims include journalists, a claim made by the source of Palestinian medics. That's crazy. They didn't call them U.S. terrorist-designated Hamas-run health ministry operatives or whatever. They just said Palestinian medics. How refreshing. The IDF said it targeted a terrorist cell operating a drone that was threatening Israeli forces, while local media outlets in Gaza reported that the victims were journalists using a drone to film humanitarian aid. Even the simple choice of what order to place those sources and quotes in does something, right? Contrasting the IDF's claim with the many sources in Gaza with no conflict of interest, unlike the IDF, makes the summary of the situation a little more honest, I think. Israeli airstrikes in the Gaza Strip on Saturday killed at least 9 people, including 3 local journalists, according to Palestinian medics. The death toll represents the highest number of casualties in a single day since the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas began in January. The IDF said 2 of the victims were operating a drone that posed a threat to the soldiers. The other victims, according to the Army's statement, were gathering the gear left over on the ground. They go on to quote the IDF's miraculous revelation that every single person that they killed, including the multiple journalists, were actually covert, undercover terrorist operatives. It's far from the first time they've had such miraculous revelations post-journalist murdering. The Palestinian Journalist Protection Center in Gaza said that the victims were journalists using a drone to film humanitarian aid. The organization said in a statement that the targeting of journalists prevents the world from being exposed to the truth about what is happening in Gaza, and called on the international community to condemn attacks on journalists. This assault constitutes a war crime that violates press freedom and endangers media and aid workers, they added. More journalists have been slaughtered in Gaza over the course of the last 17 months than any conflict in modern history. This is just another chart in the long graph of such murders. And on top of there being a righteous call to condemn such actions, is the repeated cowardice of journalists from places like the New York Times for staying completely silent on what's happening, for being willing to publish articles that normalize Israel's war crimes and genocide, while the people of their own profession are being cut down, murdered repeatedly with their families. They can watch this happen and still report on the very murders of the people that are in their profession, while immediately sharing the murderer's side of the story. It's just despicable and cowardly, and every journalist that works for the New York Times should be ashamed. Hamas said in a statement that the deliberate killing and barbaric attacks once again confirm Israel's intention to undermine the ceasefire agreement and its deliberate sabotage at every opportunity. Hamas spokesman Hazem Qasim added that Israel's attack on journalists and humanitarian workers violates the ceasefire agreement. Referring to Israel as the occupation, he said that Israel deliberately targeted humanitarian aid workers seeking to worsen the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and push the population towards famine following the tightening of its blockade on border crossings and obstructing entry of all aid. So the only time in both of these articles we get any mention of the aid blockages, which are also a ceasefire violation, are when Haaretz does the brave, bold choice of quoting the other side. Haaretz is Hamas now, I guess. I'm sure that's probably that. I'm going to look that up and show screenshots. I know that they're saying that probably. The Indonesian hospital said it received 8 bodies from 2 airstrikes in the same area of the northern town of Beit Lahia on Saturday. Fares Awad, head of emergency services in northern Gaza, identified one of the dead as Mahmoud Islim, a local reporter who was operating a drone. Several were critically wounded as the strike hit a car with casualties inside and outside the vehicle, the medics added. Witnesses and fellow journalists said the people in the car were on a mission for a charity called Al Khair Foundation in Beit Lahia, and they were accompanied by journalists and photographers when the strike hit them. So hopefully in reading both of those articles, we can see both the New York Times' disgusting passivity and normalization through their repeated citation of the IDF's own defenses as essentially fact, versus the modicum of integrity that we get from Haaretz in this specific instance, with their willingness to critically analyze the sources of their information and not do, IDF PR. Ultimately, neither of these outlets were willing to show imagery of what took place. And when you see the faces of the children that Israel has slaughtered during this quote-unquote ceasefire, or when you see the carnage inflicted upon the group of journalists trying to simply gather evidence of the starvation of their people for which they were executed, it tells a slightly more in-depth story than 9 killed. Anyways, that's it for today's video, just a short one. Sources are linked below. I made a post on my community tab about it, but my videos on Gaza keep getting demonetized, partly because I want to be able to show footage I think is necessary to show, and also partly because I don't censor the words I use when I think they're important to use to call things what they are. I'm not going to say unalive or SA or G-side in place of murder, rape, or genocide, because it's precisely that toning down of language that has created a media environment where Israel's crimes are being normalized and whitewashed. And because of that, my videos get demonetized, and because of that, I do sponsors, and I'd rather not have to put sponsored segments into my videos. So consider joining my Patreon to support the channel once it gets to a certain place. It'll just be a lot easier for me to keep the show going and not have to break it up with sponsored segments. Anyways, thanks for watching. Bye.